The forgotten patient. The hospital had long been shut down, but the cries of a patient who was never discharged still echoed through its empty halls. Have you ever wondered about the history of the buildings you live in? What stories their walls might tell if they could speak? Some homes hold pleasant memories, others dark secrets. But what if your home was once a place where people were abandoned, forgotten, and their voices silenced forever? Hi, and welcome back to Blood-Curdling Chronicles. Today's story is not just spine-chilling, but a terrifying reminder of how the past can haunt the present. What you're about to hear is the account of a man named Eric, who unknowingly moved into a place with a dark and deeply disturbing history. A former psychiatric hospital with secrets that refuse to stay buried. Let's dive in. Eric had just landed what seemed like a dream apartment. Located in a city's quiet historic district, the building was recently renovated and marketed as modern living with vintage charm. A marketing brochure had boasted about its high ceilings, large windows, and proximity to parks and cafes. But what the brochure didn't mention was its chilling past as a psychiatric hospital. Eric, unaware of this history, was thrilled to move in. He loved the exposed brick walls and original hardwood floors. He didn't even mind the faint, musty smell lingering in the air, a detail he brushed off as part of the building's old-world charm. The first couple of weeks were uneventful. Eric worked late, spent his evenings relaxing in his apartment, and had little interaction with his neighbors. But soon, strange things started happening. It started with faint sounds at night. At first, Eric thought it was the pipes groaning or perhaps the old building settling. But one night, while lying in bed, he distinctly heard what sounded like whispering. It was faint but undeniable, like someone murmuring just on the other side of the wall. He sat up in bed, heart pounding, and strained to listen. The whispers grew louder, then abruptly stopped. "Old pipes," he muttered to himself, trying to shake off the creeping unease. The next night, the whispers returned, accompanied by faint sobbing. Eric's logical mind wrestled with what he was hearing. He told himself it must be a neighbor, perhaps someone going through a hard time. But the walls between the units were thick, and these sounds seemed to come from inside his own apartment. Determined to find the source, Eric began exploring his apartment more thoroughly. It was during one of these searches that he discovered something peculiar, a seam in the wall behind his bed, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it. It wasn't a crack or damage. It looked like the outline of a door. Curiosity overpowered his apprehension, and Eric started tapping on the wall. It sounded hollow. Excitement mixed with dread as he realized there might be a hidden room on the other side. The next day, Eric borrowed tools from a coworker and set to work. It took hours, but eventually he pried open the hidden door. What lay beyond froze him in his tracks. The room was small, no more than a few feet across, and smelled of decay. Inside were an old, rusted bed frame, a single chair, and medical equipment that looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. On the walls, faint scratch marks were visible, as though someone had clawed at them in desperation. But what truly sent chills down Eric's spine was the notebook he found on the bed. It was old, its pages yellowed and brittle. Scrawled inside were journal entries written by someone named Margaret. The entries started innocently enough, detailing Margaret's days as a patient in the hospital. She described her loneliness, her longing to see her family, and her hope that the doctors would help her get better. But as the entries continued, they became increasingly erratic. Margaret wrote about being locked in this room for days on end, about the experiments the doctors performed on her, and about how she was forgotten after funding for her treatment ran out. Her last entry read, "They've stopped checking on me. I don't think they're coming back. I'm so cold. If someone finds this, please, finish the treatment. Please, set me free." Eric's hands trembled as he read the words. He suddenly felt as if he were being watched, as though the room itself were alive. After opening the room, the strange occurrences in Eric's apartment intensified. The whispers became louder, and the sobbing turned into wails. Objects began moving on their own, a glass shattering in the kitchen, a chair sliding across the floor. Eric started having vivid nightmares about a woman in a hospital gown, her face gaunt and her eyes hollow. In these dreams, she would reach out to him, whispering, "Finish the treatment." He would wake up drenched in sweat, the words echoing in his mind. One night, Eric woke up to find the hidden door wide open, though he was certain he had closed it. Inside the room, the chair was no longer where he'd left it. It now faced the doorway, as though someone had been sitting there, watching him. Desperate for answers, Eric began researching the building's history. He learned that it had been a psychiatric hospital in the early 1900s, notorious for its inhumane treatment of patients. When the hospital shut down, many patients were simply abandoned, left to die within its walls. Margaret, he discovered, was a real patient. Records showed that she had been admitted for melancholia and was left in solitary confinement after the hospital closed. Her body was never found. Determined to put an end to the haunting, Eric decided to finish the treatment, though he didn't fully understand what that meant. He gathered the remnants of Margaret's belongings and burned them, hoping to free her spirit. That night, the activity in the apartment reached a fever pitch. The whispers became screams, and the room seemed to shake. But just as suddenly as it began, the chaos stopped. The apartment fell silent. Eric thought it was over, until he saw the message scrawled on his bedroom mirror the next morning. It wasn't enough. Some places are never truly at peace, and some secrets are meant to stay buried. If you ever move into a place with a history, be careful what you uncover. You may not like what you find. With that said, thank you for watching Blood-Curdling Chronicles. If you enjoyed this chilling story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. And until next time, stay curious and stay safe.